My son didn't ask me to move into a retirement home. He presented me with a signed purchase agreement for my house, telling me I'd already agreed to it during a painkiller haze after my surgery. You spend a lifetime building a home, filling it with books and memories, believing its walls will keep you safe. You never imagine the greatest threat will come from the boy whose scraped knees you bandaged in that very kitchen. The world tilted. The document in my hands felt alien, the signature a grotesque parody of my own elegant script. I was trapped in my favorite armchair, my broken hip a prison, while my son and his wife stood over me like undertakers. "Mom, be reasonable," Jonathan said, his voice a practiced blend of concern and condescension. "This house is a burden. The stairs, the old wiring, we found you a wonderful place. It's time." Chloe nodded, her smile a tight, bloodless thing. "It's what's best for you. You signed the papers yourself, remember? After your surgery? You said you were relieved." I looked at the purchase agreement, my name scrawled in a shaky forgery. "I would never," I whispered, my heart pounding a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. "This is my home." "It was your home," Jonathan said softly, his eyes cold. "Now it's an asset. Our asset." The world didn't just tilt, it shattered. My own son had pickpocketed my life while I was doped on morphine. I waited until I heard their car pull away, then I dragged myself to the phone, my hip screaming in protest with every agonizing step. I called Arthur Pendleton. My voice was a shaky whisper. "Arthur." "Jonathan, the house." "Say no more, Evelyn," he cut in, his voice grim. "I'm on my way." He arrived with his old leather briefcase, a relic of a more honorable time. He read the agreement, his lips pressed into a thin, white line. "He's not just greedy, Evelyn. He's stupid." Arthur looked up, a fierce light in his eyes. "He forgot about the life estate clause we put in the deed 30 years ago. This house is yours until you take your last breath. This sale is worthless." He committed a felony for nothing. He opened his laptop, the modern tool in his antique hands. "Now let's teach our boy a lesson he should have learned in kindergarten. You don't steal." Our counterattack was a masterclass in strategic leverage. I played my part, the frail, confused mother, my acting skills honed by a lifetime of analyzing Shakespearean tragedy. I secretly recorded conversations where Jonathan and Chloe, emboldened by their perceived victory, discussed flipping the house for a massive profit the moment I was out of the picture. Arthur filed a lawsuit to void the sale and a complaint with the state notary commission against Chloe's cousin. He then leaked the story to an investigative reporter. The headline, "Professor Preyed Upon by Predatory Son," was a nuclear strike on Jonathan's reputation. Cornered and facing ruin, Jonathan retaliated with a weapon designed to annihilate my soul. He came to me with a single yellowed page. "A letter from Dad," he said, his voice venomous. "It seems your brilliant career was a fraud. You stole your seminal work from a colleague. He was disgusted by you. I'll send this to every academic journal, every former student. I'll make your life's work a footnote on a scandal unless you confirm the house sale." I was gutted. But then, the academic in me awoke. The scholar who knew that truth is found in the details. Arthur and I became researchers. The paper was modern acid-free. The ink was a common brand from the last decade. The forgotten colleague was my husband's arch-rival, a man whose theories my work had thoroughly debunked. We didn't just defend. We launched a scholarly offensive. I donated all my research notes, early drafts, and correspondence to the university library. At the public unveiling, I stood before my colleagues and former students, not as a victim, but as a curator of truth. I systematically demonstrated the genesis of my ideas, simultaneously exposing Jonathan's forgery for the clumsy, malicious fiction it was. My legacy was not just defended, it was immortalized. The court voided the house sale. Jonathan and Chloe were investigated for fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. I changed my will, leaving everything to a charitable trust for literacy. The kind, trusting mother was gone, replaced by a clear-eyed woman who had reclaimed her narrative. They thought my age made me vulnerable. They thought my love was a weakness. But they forgot that a lifetime of studying stories teaches you how to spot a villain and, more importantly, how to write a better ending. My son provided the conflict, but I, Dr. Evelyn Reed, wrote the final chapter. And it was a triumph. The victory, while legally and morally absolute, left a hollowed-out space where a son used to be. The silence in my house was no longer peaceful. It was the quiet after a bomb has detonated, the air still vibrating with the shockwave. Jonathan and Chloe, facing a tangle of criminal charges, had cut all contact. Their absence was a phantom limb, a constant, aching reminder of the amputation. Arthur became my anchor. His weekly visits were no longer about legal strategy, but about sanity. We would sit in my study, surrounded by the books that were my true family, and talk of everything but the law. He saw the deep weariness in my eyes, the toll the battle had taken. "The war is won, Evelyn," he said one afternoon, his voice gentle. "But the occupation is exhausting you." He was right. Every creak of the floorboards made me start. Every piece of mail felt like a potential legal summons. My home, my fortress, had become a place of siege memories. I was living in a monument to betrayal. It was during one of these talks that Arthur made a radical suggestion. "Sell it." I stared at him, aghast. After all we fought for? To let him win by driving me out. Driving you out was his goal, Arthur corrected softly. Choosing to leave on your own terms for your own peace? That's your victory. The ultimate editorial power. The idea took root. I realized I was clinging to the house not out of love, but out of defiance. And defiance is a cold companion. I contacted a realtor, a no-nonsense woman I trusted. The sale of a historic professor's home, with its story of triumph over elder abuse, attracted considerable interest. It sold for well over market value. With the proceeds, I did something Jonathan would never have understood. I bought a modern, secure, single-level apartment in a vibrant part of the city. It had no memories. It was a blank page. I furnished it with only my most cherished books and art, creating a space that was entirely, unequivocally me, not a widow, not a mother, but Dr. Evelyn Reed, scholar and survivor. The final piece of my new life fell into place when the director of the local library, a former student of mine, approached me. "Evelyn," she said, "we have a vacant writer-in-residence office. It's yours, if you'd like it. No teaching, no obligations. Just a quiet space to think and, perhaps, to write." I accepted. Now, my days have a new rhythm. I walk to the library, to my small, sunlit office overlooking the city. I am, for the first time, writing my own story, not an academic text, but a memoir. Not of bitterness, but of resilience. Jonathan and Chloe's trial is a distant news item to me now. Arthur sends me brief, clinical updates. They were convicted. They will be punished. That part of the story is closed. I look around my new apartment, at the city lights beginning to twinkle outside my window. The house was a chapter, a long and mostly beautiful one, but it ended. This is the sequel. It is quieter, more thoughtful, and its protagonist is wiser, stronger, and finally, truly free. They stole the ending they wanted for my story. So I simply started a new volume. And this one, I think, is the best one yet. The new volume of my life settled into a rhythm as precise and satisfying as a sonnet. My memoir, The Unassigned Text, was not a bitter chronicle of betrayal, but a meditation on narrative itself, how we are all authors of our own lives, and how the most profound revisions often come from the most painful edits. It found a quiet, respectful audience, and the royalties were quietly absorbed into the literacy trust. The trial of Jonathan and Chloe concluded with a swift, unceremonious thud. A plea bargain. Arthur delivered the news in his usual, unvarnished way. They took the deal. 18 months, white-collar facility. It's over. I felt nothing. No triumph, no sorrow. It was a factual update, like a footnote in a book I had already closed. The true sentence had been the one I had imposed, their permanent exile from my life. But the universe, in its strange economy, began to offer unexpected compensations. My presence at the library made me a quiet landmark. Students would timidly approach my open door, asking not about literary theory, but about life. How did you know it was time to leave your home? How do you rebuild trust? I had become, to my amusement, an oracle of practical resilience. One such student, a young woman named Anya working on her PhD, became a regular. Our conversations drifted from her dissertation to shared loves, Austen's wit, the Brontes' wild passions. One rainy afternoon, she helped me carry a stack of books back to my apartment. As she looked around my Spartan, book-filled space, her eyes widened not at its modesty, but at its purpose. "It feels like a mind made into a room," she said, a perfect, poetic observation. Anya slowly became a fixture. She'd come for tea, and we'd talk for hours. There was no agenda, no transaction. It was the pure, uncomplicated connection of two minds meeting across the decades. I found myself sharing stories of Arthur, my late husband, things I hadn't spoken of in years. In her, I saw not a replacement for a son, but the intellectual daughter I never had. On a bright spring morning, Arthur and I met for our now customary weekly lunch. He slid a small, flat box across the table. "A Bellatory housewarming gift," he said. Inside was a beautiful, old-fashioned key mounted on a velvet background. Engraved on the brass plate beneath it were the words, "The author holds the key." I looked at him, my eyes misting. "It's perfect, Arthur." "We did good, Evelyn," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We saved the story." That evening, Anya came over. I showed her the key. She listened to the story behind it, her expression thoughtful. "He's right, you know. You didn't just save it. You rewrote it. And this new edition is a masterpiece." I sit now, in the deepening twilight, the city a tapestry of lights below. The quiet is no longer the silence of loss, but the rich, full silence of contentment. The plot twists of betrayal and revenge are past. The villains have been dealt with, not with fury, but with the cool, final permanence of a published text. What remains is the denouement, a life of chosen connections, intellectual passion, and a hard-won peace that is deeper and more meaningful than any that came before. The story of Dr. Evelyn Reed is not one of a victim, but of an editor. I took the messy, tragic draft life handed me and, with a steady hand and a clear eye, revised it into a work of profound and quiet triumph. The final page is not an ending, but a satisfied pause. A well-placed period. And it is enough.